All right, so we are talking about gratitude. Dalice Rose-McSeveney. How do you feel about gratitude? Gratitude's the attitude. Gratitude is like your middle name, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? It's so aligned for you.
It is. Yeah, it is. Look, it gets me through everything. I've gone through some pretty tough times in my life. I think we all have our own backstories, and normally the thing that gets me through that is changing my mindset and using my mindset to find the things that I'm grateful for, helps strengthen my resilience. So it doesn't take the problems away. That's what I love about gratitude. It isn't about taking the problems away. We will always face challenges and problems in our lives, loss, heartache, all of those things happen, disappointment. Right. Unfortunately, that's just part of being human, right? Yeah. What it does do is it gives me the resilience to be able to strengthen my mental fitness in order to lean into whatever is happening. And the bigger, the more enormous the event, sometimes that leaning in takes longer. But with persistence, it actually pays off. It always does in the end. And I always feel that I come through that stronger. And stronger mentally is what I mean, rather than physically. It means that I have
more resiliency,
I feel more, that's right. I mean, it means it gives me the strength as well for moving forward and knowing that actually the next hurdle that I face, I likely will face that
it'll be milder
with more resilience, and therefore that's right, my slump won't be as deep, right?
Ooh,
and it won't be
I like
as long.
That.
And and that's the healing for me in regards to that. And so I am a walking, talking
gratitude
person.
Ambassador. She's even an ambassador, people, of gratitude. Gratitude ambassador. I love that. Yeah, that whole high-low thing. My husband, Terry Earthwind-Nichols, Ambassador Terry Earthwind-Nichols, he's ex-Navy, so he was on ships, and however high the waves go up, they go down into the ocean, deep into the ocean. And so when we're working with clients, it's talking about like, okay, so when you get excited, you go way up here. So how about if you just go up here? Because then instead of going way up here and way down here, your low won't be as low. So just go up here and then you'll only be to here. It's really a choice. Like, how do you want to feel? And some people can be really addicted to like the excitement, well, then they get the opposite and they don't like that part. So instead of focusing on, but I like to get really excited, focus on, do you really like to feel like crap? Like, oh, no, I really don't. Okay, well, here's how you do this. It's called modulation. So that works out really good. So joy.
I like that. It is, I mean, you can always use that to swoop yourself back up as well.
Yes, like just let yourself sink so you can touch the bottom of the pool and push off.
A little bit like being on, if I think of it, when I say slump, it's kind of the stages you naturally go through when you face something, a hurdle in life. And you could probably list at least 10 or so of them, and they'd be along the dotted line of the slump. And when you build up your resilience using gratitude is the primary virtue, if you like, to help
you don't get slump as low.
That up. You don't slump as low, but also you go through it quicker. You get it, you go past those stages sometimes with such speed you don't know you're going through them. Right. And that's a little bit like riding a skateboard on the slump. Really, go and you're kind of here, and you're like, great. Nice. I've managed to get myself to the other side without being stuck in the slump, without it being, without it pulling me down. Yeah,
very good. Yeah. So how does joy come into all that?
It's the feeling that you get from feeding your mind with positive thoughts.
Okay.
I call it injecting joy juice. So you literally are feeding yourself with positivity. So you start to see the world for the good that is in front of you. And it may be the simple little things that you are missing every day, because we do get busy. So we do pass the roses without smelling them. We do not see everything that is in front of us all the time. And what would sometimes be seen as mundane things, or the things that we take for granted. If we stop and take the time to reconnect with those things, it sounds so simple and almost trivial, but it actually has enormous power in turning our mindset. And
it's all about slowing down.
To start to see. So the more you focus on, if you focus on the positive, you start to see more positive. You focus on the negative, you start to see more negative. It's no different to if you break up in a relationship, you turn on every radio, and normally there's either a love song or a breakup song. One of the two will be there, because your mind is so focused on that. That's all you can see, or you only see happy couples. Well, it's actually there will be other people around you that are unhappy, but you can't see that because your focus is on your loss. And so we are what we think, and we think what we are, right? So if we feed ourselves with using gratitude to start the day and go, what am I grateful for? And end the day about what we're celebrating. We will re-inject our mind with joy, and therefore actually we'll start to see more good. We'll be more respectful, we'll be more resilient, we'll be more patient and tolerant of others, and we won't see things so negatively. It really does work, and that's what I love about it so much. That's why I'm such an ambassador of gratitude, because it's accessible to anyone and everyone. You may need guidance to learn how to start practicing it, but actually once you've got that, you can use that tool set for the rest of your life.
And it's powerful.
It'll get you through.
I love it. So healing bonds. What comes up for you when you think about healing bonds?
For me, that's about the connection for people and unifying people, because I find with practicing mindfulness and gratitude, you start to be more open to what is going on in other people's worlds, rather than it all being about myself. So if I'm always saying that you may not have spoken to me or said hello because of me, because you don't like me, or you're not being nice to me, well, actually, if I use gratitude, I will stop and say, I was thankful that I got to see you today, instead of focusing on the thing that I lost, which was you not saying hello to me.
That's really beautiful.
Then with that, with that shift of mindset, I now see you, right? I'm actually just seeing you, not seeing you for what I want you to give me. I'm just seeing you. I'm acknowledging your existence. And I think there is some bond healing for humans at the moment that is required again for us to just reconnect as souls, as a human race, to go, we all are worthy of being here. We all deserve our place here.
And we each do have a place here too. This story of like, instead of like taking it on as personal, when I was president of the women's group at a church, when I was like in my first marriage and real early before kids, there was a lady who, she just seemed like she really didn't like me. And I just couldn't figure it out. And like, I'm like, what's not to like? But it was like, I hadn't done anything towards her. I hadn't deliberately offended her. Like, did I offend her? I just couldn't figure it out. So I invited her over to my house for lunch. And initially she was like, why do you want me to come to your house for lunch? Like, she was almost paranoid about it. And I'm like, because I'd like to get to know you better. And she's like, oh. So during lunch, she reveals that she had a baby and it was very special needs. She was told that the baby wouldn't live all that long, not very many years, and that she should give it up. And because my background was special education, so she like saw me as a special education teacher, she was afraid that I would like reject her for that. whoa, that was so powerful. And of course I just cried, and of course she cried too. So that was like, talk about a healing bond moment. That was so beautiful. And her baby did live until she was 3. And I think she's got to see it. Like, it wasn't like adopted out, it was like institutionalized or something, but which she was so guilty. Because it was kind of on the cusp of, you didn't do that stuff anymore, so she had like that societal guilt, like, I'm a bad mother for doing this, blah blah blah. And she went on to have other kids, and they were okay. So
yes, an interesting example. It is a really interesting example. Thank you for sharing, because it is about that, right? We do not know other people's backstories. We do not know what their triggers are. And sometimes for them, they don't even know what their triggers are. So absolutely commend that lovely lady for opening up and letting you know about that, right, over that lunch, because
that was very
sometimes people that's very brave, because sometimes people will be so ingrained in their mindset and their thoughts and their self-beliefs that the stories we tell ourselves, that actually we close ourselves down, and we're not always willing to share what our thoughts are or our experiences have been, out of shame or fear of being judged and those sorts of things. In that situation especially, given your background, she may have had a big fear of being judged. She was obviously triggered by your background and her experiences. And I'd imagine that was an amazing bonding experience for both of you.
It was.
To have it released so and talk to someone about it as well.
Right? Oh yeah, it is so healing. And you talk about triggers and not knowing people's triggers. I don't know if you know my story with Terry and I, but he was just like, I saw you at so-and-so's and I just wanted to scoop you up in my arms, tell you you're mine, and I'm marrying you. And he goes, I wasn't having any problems in my relationship. And he had been divorced for like 5 years, but he was in another relationship. And like 6 months later, that relationship had broken up. And so he told me about it 6 months later. And I mean, he had just seen me, like, we just sort of knew of each other, but that was it. And and he goes, and I still feel that way. And I'm like, you want to marry me? When you want to marry me? He goes, in a week and a half, 2 weeks, take your time. I'm like, what? Right? And I made him wait an extra half a week. So 2.5 weeks later, we were married. Talk about not knowing one another's triggers. Yeah, that got interesting. Wow. So we started, if somebody went to a 1, like, I'm going to a 1, and then everything stops, and then talk through what's, triggering the person who calls the 1, or they just like, I need a break, would come back to this in 5 minutes or whatever it was. And if we went to a 2, that was like really serious. Like, there's like really big something coming, and 3 would be like throwing things at each other. So they never got to a 3.
Thankfully.
Wow. Yeah. So I hear you. And and knowing each other's triggers, that brings a lot of peace, and healing the bonds with others, that brings a lot of peace. And I just absolutely love the point that you made about how somebody basically is rejecting you. It feels like you could take it like they're rejecting me, and but you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, as Shel Shapiro always says. You don't know. And so you flipped it. And, I just love your story there.
Absolutely. Flipping the mindset or your thought pattern is the key there to be able to, you've got to have awareness and recognize, of course, but when you get to those stages, you can flip that and go, it's not about me.
Yeah.
And why does it need to be? Like, I think it's a huge amount of research. Something like 75% of the time, we all think that others are thinking about us when actually they're not. So if you think about that, right? So all of us have this self-absorbed kind of thought pattern where we're actually, and we'd hate to hear ourselves say that because we wouldn't see ourselves as selfish. But you walk into a room, if the room goes quiet, our first instant reaction is,
everybody's looking at me.
Talking about me. or
right.
What's wrong with me? Or and of course it's an awkward feeling. I'm not saying that isn't.
It is. It is. Learning to walk into a room
however,
is
it doesn't necessarily
deal.
mean that that's fact. So it's that fact check. You have that thought and you go, do I know that for true?
Yeah.
And if you cannot
that's
validate that you know that for true, then you let go.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Because there is no value going to come from overthinking. Rumination is the other thing that we do to ourselves, right? Overthink, we go. And it becomes this real story by the end of the rumination. We've created an entire chapter of a book that validates the thought pattern that we've had. Well, why did it validate? Because our thought pattern was that way. So therefore, everything we see thereafter is helping validate the way in which we feel.
It's a filter on the glasses,
attracted to it. So we're pulling it in. There it is. There it is. Yeah. So, and that's where gratitude for me helps bring peace to your mind. Right? You practice gratitude. You acknowledge the good that there is, because it absolutely does exist, even with the worst, most unimaginable moments. I have been raped twice in my life. I have lost a child for stillbirth. I have lost a partner who drowned in the ocean and disappeared. I've gone through
my gosh, grief, girl.
And loss in massive ways. I used gratitude, or at least a form of gratitude, back at in those different stages to get myself through that. And forgiveness, which is a really big part of it for me with gratitude, is it comes with forgiveness. Like, you forgive yourself for the situations you're in, you forgive those people for the situations that they put you in, and it doesn't do away with any of the wrongs that people may have done. And it won't bring my son back getting upset and angry with the world because he died in utero at 9 months. But what it did give me, Linda, is the most amazing birthing story that I ended up writing about, because I have really, really, really good memories of that birthing story. And I'm so pleased that I do, because that's my only memories I have of holding my son at that point. That was the only time that we got to have with him. So I got to have an incredible birthing story. And it fills my heart with love and pride whenever I think about it. And that's 15 years ago now. So, there is living proof that if you look at the world through a lens of celebration, through gratitude, the good things do come for you. You do build that resilience, and you can overcome enormous mountains that come in front of you. There are ways through that and come out the other side feeling happier or joyful, still trusting the world, still knowing that there is actually good in this world. We are injected with negativity all the time at the moment, with wars and pandemics and all sorts of things, and riots and horrible things constantly. We've got to choose which messages that we want to inject.
I love it.
Mind how much we need to see of that as well.
Thank you so much, Dalice, and all of it really does come to peace. And this has just been a lovely conversation. I appreciate you so much. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.